言われるたび No way, no way 悲しかった誰だってそうよ私もそう私と違うあなたが眩しい君もっと
Hello and welcome to episode 230 of Retro Encounter, RPG fans' weekly podcast of many topics. I'm Mike Sollosi, and I'm here for another round of discussion on Tokyo Mirage Sessions, that Wii U RPG developed by Atlus, that's had a recent Switch port. I recently played it on the Switch, and my co-host, Nathan Lee, recently reviewed it on the Switch. Hello, Nathan.
Hello, everyone. How's it going?
So, Nathan, you were a big fan of this game already, and the play that you did for review on the Switch was your third or fourth playthrough. Am I remembering this correctly?
Fourth.
So you're a big fan, and this is my first time playing the game, and I'm going to say it right out of the gate. This game is really fun. I had a great time. My playtime was in the 45 to 50 hour range. I didn't do all of the end game content, but I did do all of the side quests, and I really just had a good time. This is a game with good writing, good characters, and really solid RPG mechanics. So whenever I make a complaint or it seems like I'm hating on something, please understand it with me having an underlying enjoyment, because I think this is a good video game, and I know that you also think it's good because obviously you've played it several times. But when you did the replay on the Switch, what were maybe one or two things that you either noticed that felt that you noticed liking in particular, or felt like these are one of the strengths I would mention when recommending this game to others?
It's certainly the best version you can play. Like the Wii U version, there's certainly not much of a point in going back. So everything about this game is faster. So including from like the quick session attacks, which you can do by pressing the button instead of having to watch all the animations. You can switch out Itsuki after New Game Plus.
I would have liked to try that, but I didn't really go into the New Game Plus at all.
Battle animations are just, there's no longer any more lag, so everything just works better in this version. So there's definitely a version to pick up if you want to play Tokyo Mirage Sessions. Not that like I'm asking anyone to go back and buy a Wii U for this game, but
well, I mean, I was thinking really outside of just the port issue. Like, what do you think is a highlight of this game? That if you were just recommending either version of TMS to people, like, what would be one of the selling points? Like, what's one of the good things about this RPG?
Easily the best part is just its battle system. It's easily the best part. The way how, like, it has the traditional Atlus formula of you need to find weaknesses and then exploit weaknesses. But I find the way that they do it is so stylish and just overall just fun to play through the entire game with. Like, it's never gets boring, the system.
Yeah, I basically agree. The battle system is really satisfying to pull off long combos. When your characters start having several session skills that you learn over time by equipping weapons and learning skills from weapons, Final Fantasy IX style, and you start getting those session skills stacked up, you get to chains of 8 or 9 per session, which can multiply if you randomly get a duet skill.
Duo art.
Yeah, duo art. That's it. So I got 16 or 18 hit combos many times, and once a 24 hit combo, and it's incredibly satisfying to see the damage stack up and see the numbers stack up. And that's only sort of the end result of a good move. But you're right, like this is a stylish version of Atlus combat that is, not exactly the same as Persona or SMT's combat. It has they have their own wrinkles and differences. Being surrounded by an audience and having, giant jumbotrons of your characters' faces as you switch them in and out. That's just very, very just very fun and sort of celebratory. Like combat, they want combat to feel like a performance and to feel flashy and fun, and I think they basically pulled it off. Like you mentioned, the Switch version allows you to speed up combat by cutting out session animations and just has better load times in general. I mean, at least personally, I've only played the Switch version. It felt crisp and fast-moving for turn-based combat, which is an ideal for me. Like, I like RPGs with turn-based combat, and with turn-based combat feels like it's not wasting my time is a major highlight. I think that's something that's really good about the Persona games, and definitely also true of Tokyo Mirage Sessions. So I'm in agreement with you. This is good combat. Let's stay on the combat wagon a little bit. Did you have a favorite team or a favorite kind of setup that you would use? Like let's say you're in the last or second to last dungeon of the game, and you just want to kick a little bit of ass. You're not trying to level up certain characters or whatnot. Like what's a team you like rolling with?
If I want to just just have fun and just like blow through enemies,
Yeah.
I think I mentioned this before, but my standard team would be Itsuki, Tsubasa, and Mamori.
Mm-hmm.
This way, my team is almost unkillable because Mamori and Tsubasa are both healers. And I guess if I really want to like just absolutely destroy enemies, I probably switch to Toma and then Kyria if I really want to like wipe the floor with enemies.
Yeah, I mean, none of the characters in this game are bad. All of them are capable of good offense and defense. But my favorite team, I think I might have mentioned this last episode also, is probably Mamori and Toma. That gives you a full weapon triangle of sword, lance, and axe. Good elemental diversity. Toma just hits like an absolute truck, and Mamori has random cover and just incredibly high defense. It's hard to kill and deals a lot of damage. And if I were to switch someone out, Mamori has a little bit of a low hit rate, so that can be a little frustrating to deal with. I would sometimes switch her out for either Kyria or Yashiro. I think his counter mechanics are almost as good defensively as Mamori's covering, and he's just a really good offensive character with a lot of different elemental attacks, even though he overlaps swords with Itsuki. We didn't really talk about Yashiro last episode. Yashiro is the final character that joins your party, and he joins right in between chapters 4 and 5. His Mirage is Navarre, which is the first Myrmidon Swordmaster character in the Fire Emblem series, back from Shadow Dragon. He's a bit of an aloof cool boy. You meet him very early. I think you see a concert in between Prologue and Chapter 1, or maybe during Chapter 1. He does a duet concert with Kyria, and he's just a consummate professional who's an extremely skilled actor and singer, but he has an incredibly serious attitude. He's like, everything he does is for the perfection of his art, and at first he looks down on Itsuki and everyone and others for being rookies or not as dedicated as he is, but he develops a begrudging respect for them. And eventually learns to, realize the real potential of the other people on the in Fortuna talent agency. And him changing talent agencies is a bit of a twist. He joins the team rather suddenly after being a villain for part of the game. He works with evil mirages, and is the final boss of Chapter 4 is him and another mirage. But if you try attacking Yashiro, he'll automatically counter and really mess you up. So you have to basically just focus on the other enemy, and once you defeat the evil mirage, Yashiro leaves. So what did you think of Yashiro's character? In the Japanese entertainment industry, changing talent agencies is very, very rare. Individual talents are sort of looked at more like assets than people a lot of the time. And if someone changes talent agencies, that's sometimes surrounding a scandal or a talent agency dropping someone, but which is not the case for Yashiro. But I mean, there was even news when there was a rumor of a famous boy band, SMAP, leaving Johnny's, a famous talent agency, that they had to do a public televised apology for it after the rumor got spread. Talent agency politics are weird in real life. So Yashiro joins the team very suddenly and randomly, but it's with the player knowing that it's so that he can work with the team to defeat the evil mirage issue that's plaguing Tokyo.
Before they got to the whole part where he talks about how his dad was taken away by mirages and then gets killed after. Before that entire point, I thought Yashiro was going to be almost like a mole in your system. Like almost like someone who's out to betray you after. Oh yeah,
you thought he was going to join it before Chapter 5 and betray during Chapter 6 or something.
Yeah, something like that. But yeah, I like Yashiro as a character. His interactions with a lot of the party members are pretty funny. When especially his side stories.
Oh, his side stories are hilarious.
His first ones are hilarious.
You remember Mamori, and this is directed to listeners and not Nathan. Nathan definitely already knows this. Mamori hosts a children's television show about cooking with a microwave, and Yashiro joins her for an episode, even dressing up in an apron and everything, and does a goofy cooking bit with her. But earlier in the side story, you learn that he hadn't eaten in 3 or 4 days because he had fired his personal assistant and had just forgotten to eat. Because he only eat.
There wasn't any time in his schedule for him to eat, so he just didn't eat.
He eats only for sustenance and not because he loves it or needs to. So in some very weird dialogue choices, you have to sort of teach him the joy of eating and then have him go on this cooking show with Mamori. And it's it's the first really lighthearted moment with Yashiro, because everything up to that point is him looking down on Itsuki. It's like, you're not talented enough to hang with me, and Like, you're just going to get yourself killed if you keep fighting Mirages this way. And then a complete left turn with his side stories, allowing him to let his hair down a little bit. His final side story, he is in the same tokusatsu show, Kamen Rider Oga, as Toma, and he gets to play an evil mad scientist villain. And so you see him ham it up with during a duo art with Toma. That's which I enjoyed a lot, of course, me being who I am. But there's two things I want to branch off from this discussion. First, side stories, which we'll definitely get to. But before then, we mentioned that Yashiro, you first fight him as the part of the boss of Chapter 4, and then he joins you shortly after. That fits the Navarre archetype a little bit. Fire Emblem games dating back to 1990 have character archetypes, where they're like types of characters recur and almost appear in every single Fire Emblem game. Like, one of the most famous ones is the Jagan. Jagan is a paladin in Fire Emblem 1 who joins you, and he's way higher level than everyone else. And he sort of babysits your party and can take hits for your party to like save them from the early difficulties of the game. And other Jagan characters are like Marcus in Fire Emblem 6 and 7, Titania and Path of Radiance,
Frederick and Awakening.
Yeah, Frederick and Awakening, Seth and Sacred Stones. Like, there's a Jagan in basically every Fire Emblem game. And Navarre is another one of those tropes or archetypes dating from Fire Emblem 1. Almost every Fire Emblem game has a swordsman character that starts as an enemy, but is recruitable if you get a certain character, usually the main character, but not always, to sort of talk to them and negotiate with them instead of fighting them. But, of course, not attacking them and accidentally killing them. And then that character can be recruited to your side. It's almost always a Myrmidon or mercenary. There's variations of this over the years, too, of course, but it was Navarre in Fire Emblem 1. There's Guy in Fire Emblem 7. I'm trying to think of others. Marissa in Fire Emblem Sacred Stones. Lonku in Fire Emblem Awakening. All these are these sort of Navarre archetype characters. And Yashiro is exactly one of those. He's a swordsman who starts out as an enemy, but then after negotiation and some dialogue will join your party. Now, recruiting characters in Fire Emblem is not the same as recruiting characters in Tokyo Mirage Sessions, but every character in Tokyo Mirage Sessions does fit an archetype of some kind. Every Fire Emblem game gives you at least 2 cavaliers, usually a red one and a green one, and that are sort of your stalwart cavalry for the whole game, and Toma is exactly one of those. Every Fire Emblem game has a female Pegasus Knight that joins you, and also some dragon riding characters, and that's exactly what Tsubasa is. Every character in this game fits a Fire Emblem archetype, and we mentioned this in the last episode a little bit, but maybe not this specifically. And they adapt those Fire Emblem gameplay elements into a Atlas style combat very smartly, I think. But I want to ask you, is there a kind of Fire Emblem character, or maybe a specific Fire Emblem character, like a favorite one, that you either love seeing in this game or didn't make it into this game? Like, just tell me a kind of Fire Emblem character or class you like, and how you think they could have been in Tokyo Mirage Sessions. Do you follow?
Kind of. But one that's kind of missing is only because Mamori doesn't really fit is the Berserker character. Yes. But like, there is a Berserker class in Tokyo Mirage Sessions that Mamori can become, but it really doesn't suit what she's supposed to do. So it feels kind of like it's just a very odd inclusion for Tokyo Mirage Sessions to have a Berserker, but that's the one character that's type is missing in the game as a whole. And the Mamoru is also the only axe user. Yeah. Which is another, like, something that feels missing. Like, I almost feel like Barry could have become, like, a second axe user.
Well, there's a couple kinds of axe fighters in Fire Emblem. There's the classic axe fighter, which usually class changes to warrior. Then you have the bandit pirate axe fighter that usually class changes to berserker. And then a couple mounted units like paladins and great knights and some cavaliers can wield axes. But you're right, it's a little bit missing. The way that class changing works in Tokyo Mirage Sessions is every character has 2 possible class changes, and Mamori's doesn't make a lot of sense because she's an armor knight and can class change to either general or berserker. And normally armor knights are either like generals or great knights, like heavily armored cavalry. But they sort of decided to throw all of the axe classes in one basket and give that to Mamori. She's really more like a general character because of her defensive skills, like capital G general, not like generic, but has stuff that you would associate with a warrior or a berserker, and is the berserker in the game. And you mentioned Barry. In chapter 4, when you sort of rescue Barry, they discuss how he was part of the team in fighting Mirages earlier in the story, but he lost his Mirage, and eventually after Draug comes to his senses, he becomes Mamori's Mirage. But I think Barry is the axe fighter warrior berserker type, especially when you in I don't know if this was in the Wii U version, but in the Switch version, if you find a treasure chest in the EX dungeon, he can join as an addition to your session attacks, and he is dressed in sort of in furs, like kind of like a Fire Emblem warrior.
Yeah, so that wasn't in the original Wii U version. So
right,
Maiko, Barry, and Tiki joining you for session attacks wasn't in the original Wii U version. That was only in the EX. They can find to the EX dungeon.
Yeah, I mean, they don't deal a lot of damage with their attacks, but that just getting extra numbers on your session combo is very, 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 very satisfying to me. So I'm glad that's in the Switch version.
Yeah, because otherwise they didn't have a lot to do. Like Maiko, Barry, and Tiki outside the side stories didn't really do a whole lot, especially Maiko and Barry.
Yeah, Maiko's side story bonus like reduces prices in shops, which is ridiculous because I think almost
you get so much money.
Yeah, I had almost 10 million yen at the end of the game. Like I run out of things to buy.
Yeah,
almost literally. So it's having them just be an extra hits in the chain combo. I thought was nice. And you mentioned that last episode you thought Maiko was originally going to be in the game as a dancer, but I had assumed she would have been a thief or a rogue just because she fights with knives in her little combo thing. But her joining sessions as part of the combo wasn't even in the Wii U version. So that's Maiko and Barry are contributors, but only barely. And I think if Barry had been a main party member, he would have been like a warrior berserker, and Mamoru would have sort of stuck to Armor Knight General. But that's not the only time they fold multiple archetypes into one character. Like Yashiro can become a swordmaster or a hero, and generally hero and swordmaster are often separate class lines. Like you'll get mercenary into hero, and then Myrmidon into swordmaster. Even though both of those Myrmidon and mercenary are basically similar sword fighter kind of classes. Tsubasa she starts out as a Pegasus Knight, and then she can either be an upgraded Falco Knight or a Draco Knight or Wyvern Knight, which are often, again, separate paths in Fire Emblem games. So they do sort of fold different character archetypes into Tokyo Mirage Sessions main characters. But the one archetype that I miss a little bit is, probably Thief. Like, thieves are important in Fire Emblem because they unlock chests and doors, and that's sort of a key part of a lot of different Fire Emblem maps. And Thief will usually upgrade into an assassin, or maybe an upgraded Thief, which is I think called a rogue in some later Fire Emblem games. Ellie does get an assassin upgrade. She can become a sniper or an assassin.
Yeah, they kind of rolled it together.
Yeah, they sort of fold these different types into each other. And there's also no nomad characters. I really like mounted archers. I in Fire Emblem games, I don't use archers a lot because their positioning is awkward. If I want good range attacks, I'll either give someone a hand axe or use a mage. And if I really want a bow user, I usually will go with a mounted archer, which is nomad in some of the GBA Fire Emblem games, and just bow knight in some of the later ones. Well, like Astrid in Path of Radiance is a really, really good cavalier who uses bows.
But only Three Houses fixes a lot of that.
Oh, they do?
Issues with archers. Three Houses archers are almost overpowered.
Oh, nice. Back to the Tactics Ogre days where our archers are almost a slightly broken class in the middle of that game. But we're not here to talk about other strategy RPGs. They do have a lot of Fire Emblem imagery and sort of style in this, even though it sort of feels like an Atlas RPG about I think I mentioned this in the previous episode. Like if you took away the names of the characters, you might not even realize it's a Fire Emblem. It has Fire Emblem influence because it's a Atlas RPG through and through. But the Fire Emblem references and characters make it a lot more fun. In the sort of first part of the final chapter, the characters have to fight several previous Fire Emblem heroes to sort of get their blessing to defeat the dragon that destroyed the Fire Emblem character's world. And it's I mentioned Jagen a little while ago. Like Jagen is sort of the person that Toma has to defeat. So when you have a boss fight against 3 Fire Emblem heroes, and one of them's Jagen, and at the end and after the fight, like Toma gets a little sparkly Jagen soul. It's again a lot of Fire Emblem references that make this game a little bit more fun for longtime Fire Emblem fans.
It is, unfortunately, it is only until like the last chapter where they finally. Like, oh yeah, I forgot this is a Fire Emblem game, and then we put all the references in here.
Yeah, they really hammer it home in the last chapter. In either end of chapter 5 or beginning of chapter 6, Tiki starts regaining her memories, and you have to go out to previous dungeons and find dragon stones, like by going through gates that were previously locked. But then you get a skill that allows you to break through some of those sort of greenish white gates that you see in previous dungeons. And by finding dragonstone items, Tiki starts to regain her memories, and they sort of bridge the Fire Emblem world story and the Tokyo Mirage Session story a little bit. Hundreds of years ago, in the world of the Fire Emblem heroes, a sorcerer named Garnef summoned an evil dragon named Medeus, and the only thing that was able to stop Medeus was the summoning of a holy dragon named Naga through an event called the Opera of Light. So, and the current story is basically Garnef, the same evil sorcerer, managing to bridge the gap between worlds and trying to steal people's capacity to perform or performa to summon Medeus again. And so the thrust of chapter 6 and the end game is trying to recreate the Opera of Light that stopped Medeus, which has you going through a dungeon that's in the Bloom Palace, and like I mentioned a minute ago, sort of fighting a few boss battles against previous Fire Emblem heroes to sort of gain their blessing to perform the Opera of Light. Things don't go exactly as planned, though, and that sort of sets off into the end game. But we skip Chapter 5 a little bit. Yashiro joins you for Chapter 5.
That's the one with we have Dark Yashiro shows up and then basically invites everyone to come and see his stage performance or whatever.
Right, that's it. And you reuse the same dungeon that was in Chapter 3. But
Yes.
But you have to visit several previous dungeons and unlock the gates for the Dragon Stones, and then eventually you fight a boss battle against Dark Yashiro.
Yeah.
And it basically unlocks like new chambers in 3 or 4 of the 4 of the previous dungeons, but you only have to visit 3. I think a fourth one just takes you to some treasure rooms. And you have to do new puzzles within those dungeons, like more visiting rooms and lighting torches in the TV set, and more traveling between different through the maid outfits in the chapter 1 dungeon, and then also like going through the TV like dressing rooms in a certain order in the TV station.
Yeah.
And they're just basically just slightly more complicated versions of the original puzzles in those dungeons. But that eventually has Tiki's memory return and gets you into a boss fight against the fake Yashiro. I think it's not immediately obvious, but the fake Yashiro sort of disappears after you fight him, but it's that TV producer who's the manipulator behind the whole thing, right?
Yeah. What's the general producer for like all these like big shows around Tokyo?
Yeah, he's a famous producer in the world of this game. What was his name again? Oh, I forget. He's
Hatanaka.
Is it Hatanaka? And you can tell Yashiro suspects it's Hatanaka because of his manner of speaking right before you fight Dark Yashiro. And in the Japanese translation, it's because he uses the pronoun boku instead of ore, because Yashiro's an ore guy and this Dark Yashiro's a boku guy. Both masculine ways of saying I in Japanese. But I forget how they translated it. The fake Yashiro calls the team darling or something, and then Yashiro's like, I'd never say that. Pretty good localization choice. Eventually, in the next chapter, you learn that Hatanaka has been working with Garnef. He was sort of Garnef's vessel for organizing this dark opera to summon Medeus. And Hatanaka attempted the same thing 5 years ago, but Yashiro's father, Performa, was strong enough to prevent it from occurring. This is their new attempt, and they're close to having it complete. And right before the final trial to get the blessing of the previous Fire Emblem heroes, where I presumed I was going to have a battle against Marth. The only character who hadn't gotten one yet was Itsuki. And of course, if Itsuki has a Fire Emblem 1 analog, it's Marth. But instead of battling Marth and getting his blessing, you see Hatanaka and Garnef sort of like snap Marth's soul, snatch it out of the air, and then you have a boss fight against Hatanaka / Garnef, which ends in them dying but still being able to summon Medeus. And the second half of Chapter 6 is going to the Cosmic Egg Stadium and fighting Medeus at the end of the longest dungeon of the game. So, what did you think of Hatanaka? Because he was so weird and so obviously fake clueless, I kind of suspected him from the beginning. It was almost not a surprise to see that he was one of the main villains from behind the scenes when I got to Chapter 6.
Yeah, because of how often he just kind of just shows up. Like maybe Chapter 2 you didn't really suspect But once he starts appearing after almost every single incident that happens, you start to suspect him a little bit.
Not even chapter 2. You run into him in chapter 1 in the dungeon with all of the maid dresses.
Yeah.
Yeah, like yeah.
Even then, I assumed that maybe he just got lost or whatever. But...
Yeah. In chapter 1, I maybe didn't suspect him, but pretty soon after, he keeps showing up. It's like, oh, okay, this guy has something up his sleeve, and I wasn't surprised when he ended up being a villain. But I was a little surprised that his motivation was he just wants to put on the best show ever, and he thinks that a dragon destroying the entire world would just be the greatest show of all time. And I'm thinking like, well, yeah, peak entertainment was the words they used. And I'm like, well, okay, this guy is either the biggest hedonist or the biggest nihilist ever, or possibly having those two things bleed together. It's really interesting theory on his motivation, but it's no designs on world domination, no desire for control or for material wealth. He just wants peak entertainment.
I was just trying to think what kind of villain, what kind of thoughts have to be running through your head to imagine that. Like, destroying the rest of the world would just be like the greatest thing ever, and everyone will love it.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether he's chaotic neutral or chaotic evil, but definitely chaotic, because that's not the most predictable or common motivation in a villain. I mean, it's almost like that like Kefka or Joker thing. Some people just want to watch the world burn. But yeah, Hatsunaka, either Hatsunaka nor Garnef, I don't think is the most compelling villain. I like Garnef as actually connecting the Fire Emblem world to the Tokyo world. And giving Tiki something to do other than make me weapons and skills. But I thought the more interesting part of the Fire Emblem half of the story was your connection to these Mirage characters and their connections to other Fire Emblem characters. Like those fights in the Trials and several of the fights in side stories, you're fighting classic Fire Emblem archetypes that I was really entertained by. I think that a lot of the best dialogue and best character moments in the game are from these side quests. And I completed all of them. And I think that any player of this game probably should, because that's where I got a lot of the most fun. Some of the side quest tasks are annoying, like I'm killing 10 of a certain enemy. I definitely didn't relish doing that. But getting all this dialogue and character development and tangible new skills and abilities, I thought were great side quest rewards. Did you have a favorite character side quest or a favorite moment in one that is worth bringing up?
I'm trying to think back to everyone's side story. I kind of like the development that Mamori goes through with hers, because she's like, at the start of it, she's kind of like unsure of herself and like not really confident enough to speak up for herself, because now she kind of just goes along with the flow of what adults want.
Yeah, I mean, Mamori's only 12 or 13, right?
11.
Oh, 11. Yeah, not even. I think I made the same age mistake in the previous episode, but it has been a few weeks since we've recorded. But you're right. She's basically a talented child who definitely wants to perform. She's not being forced into any of this, but just sort of just does what the adults tell her to. And in her side quest, she asserts herself.
She just learns to gain the confidence to speak up for herself and not always be swayed by what others want.
In the final stage of her side quest, every character side quest is 3 events. In her final one, her producer wants to introduce a new gimmick, and maybe it's her cooking with an oven, maybe it's her playing with mascots, and they basically keep tugging her around in different directions, and she basically puts her foot down and shouts, "Hey, I want to sing on my show!" And so she does, and you get a nice singing performance, because again, sometimes this game rewards you with anime music videos, and also she loves singing enka, which is a form of Japanese ballad that I know very little about. I only know it exists because of a Persona 4 side character and an old Mega Man villain. So Mamori, like you said, is her side quest about her gaining confidence and asserting herself, and it's really good character growth that you really don't see otherwise. And in Barry's side quest, part of his is about his relationship with Mamori, because he's connected to the entire team as their primary vocal trainer and dance trainer, but he definitely likes Mamori the best. It's not really
just
a secret.
A little bit.
It's not really a secret. And in one of the strangest music videos in the whole game, if you finish Barry's side quests, he co-stars in a music video with her about her singing about her pet dog, and Barry playing the part of the dog as a large man in a dog costume.
I always found that so weird. That's to me, that's the weirdest one.
Agreed. And like, I didn't mind when it's like, so the Barry Mamori duo comes up. I guess I'm going to watch them play in a dog costume for 15 seconds before I get a special attack. Like, I didn't mind it, but it is a little head scratching. And Barry's whole character as a fanboy that gets real weird about anime girls and Mamori is, I mean, I guess harmless enough because there are fans with that kind of behavior, just fans of idols and of anime and of things like that. But it's still a little bit weird watching it play out. A Caucasian man in his 30s or 40s going completely gaga over an 11-year-old girl and an anime about witches.
Yeah. Like, you're saying those people exist, but it's like, it still feels weird when this kind of role.
Uh-huh. But I'm going back to character side stories. They unlock by increasing stage rank, which is which they get just from participating in extra battles. And this correlates to the support system in Fire Emblem, because as characters fight in close proximity with each other, they unlock support conversations, which are unlockable dialogue sequences that give both characters bonuses when they fight near each other again in later in the game. And a lot of support conversations are a lot of the character development in Fire Emblem games, because Fire Emblem won't give story shine to all 50 plus characters in the cast always. And some characters really only get story dialogue in support conversations. And so, like, you unlock these side quests kind of like Fire Emblem supports, but they give you specific skills and upgrades in battle that feels more like confidant ranks or social link ranks in a Persona game. So they like take that Atlas made system and that Fire Emblem system and blend elements of both into these side quests, which I, again, think are among the best parts of the whole of Tokyo Mirage Sessions. It's a very smart implementation of Atlas RPG stuff and Fire Emblem stuff. But, of course, to the surprise of 0 people in the audience, my favorite side quest was Toma's. Toma's my favorite character. His dream is to become a hero in a Japanese superhero show. It's clearly tokusatsu and clearly an adaptation of Kamen Rider, a very popular Japanese superhero show. So they call this one Masquerader or Masquerider. Throughout his story, there's a little boy who sort of is jaded and doesn't believe in superheroes anymore. And Toma promises that he'll become a hero just for this kid. And in the final stage of his side story, a Mirage captures that kid, and Toma has to go rescue him. And the battle to save the kid is against Abel, the sort of the green cavalier counterpart to Kane's red cavalier from Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon. And defeating Abel sort of has Kane and Abel reconcile as bros, and Abel promises to protect the boy that you rescue for until further notice. So the boy, the little boy that's a bit of a brat in Toma's side story, eventually becomes a Mirage Master of his own. But Toma becomes the star of the next Masquerader show in his side story, which, again, is very Japanese entertainment. Like, whenever there's a new Kamen Rider or a new Red Ranger in a Super Sentai, it's always a guy aged 17 to 23 who's a very specific kind of handsome, who is sort of an up-and-comer, who's trying to get into acting or singing. It's always an actor like that. And Toma trying to be one of those and trying to get into tokusatsu sort of fits that real world story, except mostly in the real world, they're not trying to become a main character of a Toku show. They mostly want to have a career as an actor or singer, and Toku is being in a Japanese superhero show is something that they do for a year as a young person. And a couple, Red Rangers and Kamen Riders are now important Japanese celebrities, but that's not always the case. But having a side story in Tokyo Mirage Sessions that was like that, with a tokusatsu-themed side quest, was just completely delightful for me. And especially since I really like Fire Emblem Cavalry, like, I use Cavaliers in every single Fire Emblem playthrough, sometimes more than I should. Like, I guess the enemy has a bunch of horse slayers in there, but I'll throw my Cavalier in there anyway.
I know how that feels.
Yeah, they got knacks, and those are spears. I'll be fine. But, so that was my favorite side quest, to the surprise of no one. Kyria's is about sort of like embracing her side that loves cute things and not trying to put up an icy front all the time. Tsubasa is about gaining confidence and becoming the star in a TV show and eventually doing a duet with Curia. That's one of the better music videos in the game. Eleonora is about trying to break into Hollywood and eventually traveling to North America and starring and you're rewarded with a new improvisation for her and also a trailer for an action movie that she gets to star in. We talked about Mamori's. Yashiro is about sort of reconciling what happened to his father 5 years ago. His is a final battle against Lanku, the sword master from Fire Emblem Awakening, and him like meeting the ghost of his father telling him he's proud of him, and then sort of passing on, which was a real serious moment for one of these side stories. Maiko and Barry and Tiki also have side stories. Tiki gets to experience real world things like eating donuts and singing in concerts, and Maiko gets back into her modeling career and her side story. These are really, really good character moments, and I think a lot of the time more interesting than the main game itself, which I've said a couple times. Whenever someone's stage ranked progressed to where I could unlock a new side story, I immediately dropped what I was doing and went and did that side story if I was able to.
Yeah, they're like learning more about the characters. Like you said, they don't get these moments outside of the main story if you don't do them. So that's why I feel like it's just always an essential thing to do, especially if you just want new skills. Like it's always just fun just to go and hang out with these characters, right?
Yeah, they give you a gameplay reward with new skills or new passive abilities, and they give you a narrative reward by having just really good dialogue and really clever story beats in these side stories. I think they're an essential part of the game, and I guess it's 9 characters with 3 each, so 27 sort of quest events that are among the best parts of the game.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Yeah, Itsuki does not have his own side story, but if you complete every side story quest, you get a cutscene at the end of the game where Maiko steps down as president of Fortuna to get back into her modeling career, and Itsuki becomes the new president, which is a little weird because Itsuki is definitely only 18 or 19 after the events of the story, at the very oldest. But I have to ask you, because I don't know the answer, but maybe you do. After Itsuki becomes president, he gets a costume where he's wearing a suit and tie. In a New Game Plus, can you fight within that suit and tie?
I'm pretty sure you can. I honestly can't remember.
Yes. Ah, okay.
I honestly can't remember, though.
All right. In the next 48 hours, I'm starting a New Game Plus just to get Itsuki in a suit. Because it's a nice... this game really gives you a wealth of costumes. Every character has at least... I think Yashiro maybe only has 3 or 4. Most of the characters have some in the neighborhood of 8 to 10 costumes.
Yeah. And Tsubasa got like 20.
Yeah, oh boy. They go really crazy with Tsubasa and Kiria especially. Those two even have a costume change around the middle of the game with their regular streetwear, just to give them something new to wear. And every character has workout clothes. Every character that appears on Mamori's show gets an apron. Every character that has a music video where they have a unique costume, you get to wear that costume. The Switch version in the dungeon exclusive to the Switch version gives you at least one new costume for each character. Of course, once I unlocked the Masquerader Oga costume for Toma, I had him wearing it the rest of the game.
I can see you doing that.
Yeah, unsurprising again. And there were some DLC costumes in the Wii U version that I'm not sure are available in the Switch version. Maybe only in North America, though.
The only ones that aren't available are the swimsuit outfits that Curia... No, sorry, no. I guess all the characters had swimsuit outfits.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the only ones that aren't available in the North American... I guess global version of the Switch.
Okay. So, yeah, if you really, really want to fight with everyone in swimsuits, I guess you'll be restricted to Wii U DLC if you live in North America. But I think...
Japanese, actually. It was taken out of the Wii U version for the West as well.
So okay. So you have to be playing it in Japanese to play in swimsuits. Got it. You know what? I don't care. I get to dress up as a fake Kamen Rider, and that's what's most important of all. And so if I were to replay this in the New Game Plus, and I might, I'm not sure, even though I don't do a ton of replays nowadays. It's definitely going to be Itsuki in a suit, because when he dresses up in that in the end game cutscene, it's I'm like, huh, that's the best option available for him. That's a nice looking suit. And also in the end credits, Itsuki finally gets a solo song, because he does by far the least performing of any character in the game. But the end credits is like Itsuki finally getting his own song, and sort of the rest of the talent agency being sort of proud of him for it.
Yeah.
one more thing I noticed in the credits: Satoru Iwata is listed near the very end, and that made me sad a little bit. It's like, oh yeah, this game was made before his untimely death. That's I'm
I think
sad.
it's one of the last ones that he was like I had Nintendo before.
That tracks, because I think this game came out in late 2015 in Japan, and he died less than a year later. So
I'm pretty sure he died earlier that year in 2015.
Oh yes, it was probably during. Yeah, I think you're right. I think it was probably during the development of this game. But still, seeing him listed in the credits was a little melancholy reminder for me. But running it back a little bit. In the final dungeon, which is a lot of teleporting platforms that I was briefly confused by, sort of the second and third phases of this 4-phase dungeon had some twisty moments in there. You refight several previous bosses tuned to levels in the 40s instead of levels in the 10s and 20s, and then you finally fight Medeus, but in order to get to yourself to a level where you can fight Medeus, you have to perform the Opera of Light.
Yes, the best song.
And it's the best cutscene in the game. Holy crap! It's a pop chorus version with 4 on the floor and a disco beat and everything of the Fire Emblem main theme, and it absolutely rules. It is going to be the outro music of this podcast, 100% guaranteed.
Oh, perfect.
And it's like I had been told about it ahead of time. Like when I mentioned I was playing Tokyo Mirage Sessions to some people in Fire Emblem, and then they I think either Steph or someone else just exploded into the Fire Emblem chorus. because this is it's a bit of a notorious famous part of this game, the Fire Emblem song, and it's really good. It did not disappoint. It's all 7 characters plus Barry and Maiko and Tiki singing together, which is a moment. It's just really great cutscene. I almost wish it was in more places in the game than just one fight.
Yeah, I almost feel like that's that kind of like hype moment of the game where it all comes together.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. It's like how a lot of games have a Final Fantasy IV moment where people they met along the way sort of gather their strength to inspire the heroes to victory. This was kind of that big denouement moment at the climax of the game, and it was just a really great one of those, like really cool hype moment just before the final battle. And the final battle itself was I guess probably the most intense fight in the game. Like I was playing on normal difficulty, so none of the fights were that hard, unless I got an unlucky enemy session or unlucky enemy critical hit. But it was a cool final battle. I used Toma and Yashiro and used a lot of SP skills and just completely drained my item inventory of my strongest stuff. But it was again, it's a lot of fun. This is a game that is just rock solid mechanically as an RPG, so the boss fights kept me on my toes enough to at least have to be careful, and were entertaining in its execution all the time. This is just a great RPG. And but to get slightly more negative than the things I dislike the most about this game, I want to play another game of fair or unfair. So I'm going to list a few of my niggling complaints, and I want you to tell me if they're fair.
Okay!
Like you agree that these could be downers, or unfair.
Predictable!
Am I nitpicking a little too hard? Can you play that with me?
Yeah, of course.
All right. So fair or unfair, this idol stuff and Japanese entertainment stuff is very eye-rolling, and you have to. And because I'm not a huge follower of Japanese pop music, a lot of the stuff about the love of performing and the music videos I would unlock, sometimes I wish there was less of it. Is that fair or unfair?
I would say unfair only because this game is built around that.
Predictable!
Like, I know it's supposed to be this huge celebratory thing of the industry, so in terms of like wishing there's less of it, I don't know. I think that would change the dynamic of this game quite a bit.
I think that your call of unfair is very fair because I knew what I was getting into playing this, and even though I wish there was less of it, I definitely expected this amount of it. So again, themes of Japanese pop music do not always align with my tastes and preferences, except for the tokusatsu scenes, which are 100% my tastes and preferences. So I think that's the right call on your part. But okay, the next thing. I did not like how often I had to transport myself back to the Bloom Palace. Because whenever you find new performa from gaining stage ranks or sometimes in treasure chests, or whenever you can unlock a new Carnage, again, Carnages are weapons, by finding enemy drops, you have to go back to the Bloom Palace, back at your home base, to forge these new skills or weapons. And unlocking skill, I like that you unlock a bunch of skills and weapons, because that gives you that feeling of character growth. That's really great in many RPGs. So I'm not objecting to the wealth of skills that they give you, but I was annoyed that I was traveling back to town basically all the time. Is that fair or unfair as a complaint?
That's totally fair.
Okay!
Because especially when I played the original Wii U version, trying to go back to the Bloom Palace, that was like 2 loading screens that would take like almost 20 seconds.
Oh,
so that's like there, like that's 2 loading screens, and then back, which is another like 2 loading screens. So it would take like almost 5 minutes for me to go from, I just collected this new performance to make weapons, and I go back to the Bloom Palace. Then I gotta go through the loading screens, make the weapon, then go all the way back. It would take like forever. And it doesn't help that they give you the new drops, like when you fight new enemies, you get new drops.
Oh yeah, when you
those are always right when you start the chapter, and you don't want to really go back to your home. You want to go back to Bloom Palace because that's where you just were.
Yeah, that's one of my least favorite and favorite things of the game. When you're starting a new dungeon, let's say all of your weapons that you got from unlocks in the previous dungeon, they're all probably maxed or near maxed. So your first couple random battles in a new dungeon, you unlock a bunch of Carnages because you're getting new enemy drops for the first time. And that's exciting because that's a bunch of stuff to unlock, but it's also a bummer because you've been in the dungeon for 5 minutes and you already have to go back to the Bloom Palace to get your new weapons. So yeah, again, the push-pull of Dungeon Town is less a feeling of survival like in a 1980s Dragon Quest game, and more just like a chore that is necessary in order to unlock new stuff. And it's better in the Switch version, like doing an early dungeon Bloom Palace run is probably closer to 2 minutes than 5 minutes with better loading times, but still a bummer, and I'm glad that I'm not alone in feeling that a little bit. Okay, and the last part of this fair, unfair game we're playing, I wish there was more to do in town, because the game does crowds and the Tokyo downtown areas pretty well for the most part. I like how they fill the town with silhouettes that are non-important characters, just so that it feels crowded, even if there aren't that many people to talk to. And there are a lot of side quests of like people that have lost their wallet or whatever, or people that need to be rescued from evil mirages. Like that stuff is fine, but like there's a lot of things like storefronts and restaurants that only just heal you, and there's only maybe 2 or 3 stores or shopkeepers that make a difference. I wish there was more to do in town, because I was never really compelled to explore town unless it was to buy a new accessory or something. Is that fair or unfair? I wish they'd fleshed out the Tokyo setting a little bit more.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay!
Because like the only reason you have to go to certain places is if you want to buy something, and there's not much to do otherwise. Because all those various like other places you can visit, they're all for healing yourself. And the healing effects aren't really like that important. They increase the character's luck, but they never explain what luck does. Yeah,
I think luck affects dodge rate and critical hit rate. At least if it does in most of the old school Fire Emblem games I've played. But all of the food just heals you to full in this game. There aren't special bonuses other than semi-random luck boosts, and there are vending machines everywhere, including in your home base. So I would get something out of the vending machine in my home base to heal my party all the time, and there was never a reason to visit the cafe or visit a restaurant unless I had to for a side quest. Whether it was a character side story or just a random, hey, I've lost my cat kind of side quest in town. So yeah, like I like how they did. I like how large they have Tokyo feel. I like the sort of crowd and set design of the town areas in this game. But I just wish they gave you a little more to do. And there's some just useless town areas. Like the rooftop is really only for Toma's side quests, and the classroom set is really only for Ellie's side quests. And they probably could have cut those from the game. Like those two zones are almost useless.
It's funny because I don't remember this from the Wii U version, but I remember. The start of Ellie's first side quest, she has you meet in Shibuya, and she just tells you to go to the classroom. Because I remember in the Wii U version, I think that she told you to meet her at the classroom. I don't remember meeting her in Shibuya first, so it's almost like they could have cut out the classroom part and just have you just meet in Shibuya, because you just end up going there anyway.
I think they could have cut out the classroom and the rooftop and just made those different places in Shibuya. And again, Shibuya is the big downtown area where almost all of the town stuff takes place in. There's also Harajuku, which has a couple extra stores, and the character arena. And the observatory area, which is I don't know, just a special place to visit downtown. The classroom and the rooftop don't have dungeons, only they feel useless, and there isn't a lot to do downtown unless you have a specific reason for a side quest to go there. So, like, all right, I'm glad I'm not crazy. I got 2 fairs and 1 unfair out of you, which I think is a fair presentation of my criticisms of this game, which I ultimately really liked. Again, the RPG mechanic stuff is really satisfying. As a longtime Fire Emblem fan since the 2003 Game Boy Advance game, I loved the references I noticed, and especially the elements like how the combat and skills in Tokyo Mirage Sessions resembled something in an old Fire Emblem game. I thought that was really fun every time I noticed or experienced something like that. And class changing is really satisfying. When you get a visual upgrade and a gameplay upgrade, it's one of the best things to feel in an RPG. And things like the abundance of skills and the abundance of costumes and all the optional content in the story, all of this is great. This is a rock solid RPG that I felt was worth my investment of 50 hours or so. So I have 2 final questions for you before we close up shop. Nathan, how likely do you think a sequel is of this game, and what is something you would like to see out of a sequel, if one were to exist?
I think they were thinking about a sequel before this game released, but then, of course, I'm assuming the numbers probably were not nearly high enough to justify a sequel.
Yeah, when I was doing a little bit of side research, this game was slightly underperforming. Maybe because of the Wii U's low sales, maybe for other reasons. But the Wii U did not sell great, and the Switch port did a little better, but nothing overwhelming numbers-wise.
Yeah, I still think it's because there's still, I guess I'll have to mention censorship now, because that's the majority of the complaints I always see on social media whenever I dive into the comments section of this game is ruined because it's been censored and all that stuff. And, granted, I am against censorship as well, but in this case, it's like...
Well, in this case, people complaining about censorship do not know what the word censorship means. This is not a government entity preventing the circulation of this game, and this is not any entity preventing the buying or selling of this game. This was a choice made by the publisher or by a localizer to change visual elements of the game, but then still sell it as normal. That's not what censorship is. They changed some of Tsubasa's and I think maybe also Kiria's costumes to be a little bit less revealing. That is a choice that may be frustrating to people who wanted the original costumes, but that's not censorship. But I understand disliking that, but I don't care about it at all. You are right, though. That discussion of censorship and the costume changes do dominate a lot of the discussion of this game online. I did notice that.
Yeah, I think it's because of the primary audience of this. Well, I don't see the primary audience of this game, but basically what this is trying to appeal to. It's almost like that kind of super otaku-ish fan base that really likes the games that are untouched and pure and all that stuff. That's probably the reason why. But
yeah, it feels like a puritanical decision on the part of I'm not sure if it was Nintendo or Atlas or Sega or a localizer who made that choice. So I don't want to point fingers anywhere, but it does feel puritanical and maybe slightly self-sabotaging, because again, this is they probably knew that the audience would the opposite of embrace those changes.
I think that's probably one of the reasons for sales, and because this game is so anime influenced, it drives other people away from wanting to play it because they think it's just some weird anime game that, always get those really negative reviews and don't always, appeal to general fans. So that's the part that always saddened me, because this is actually a really solid game, but people stay away from it just because it's anime aesthetic, and then people who like the anime aesthetic and then get annoyed because they got censored. So it's kind of like this weird niche of people who enjoy this game.
Yeah, no, I think the developers are aiming very directly at a specific niche. And this game, I think, is great and probably successful for that niche. But then the decision to change the international version betrayed that niche a little bit, which is, again, confusing and resulted in slightly low sales, which lead me to agree with you. I think that there won't be a sequel to this game unless it's into the far, far future where being a sequel almost wouldn't matter anymore.
Yeah, it's always the point where they do it for like the specific fans of this game, and it has to be a point where they can be like, we might lose a little bit of money on this game, but it's okay. We'll just satisfy like this group of fans, right? Something like that. That's the only reason I can see a sequel being made in the future.
Makes sense to me. And now my second query to you. Atlus in the 2010s, other than, I think, basically since Shin Megami Tensei 4, which is 2013, every game from there to the present has either been Persona, Etrian Odyssey, or a remake of an older game, except for Tokyo Mirage Sessions. It's an unusual step by Atlus to make something outside one of their major franchises. Going ahead, we know that Persona 5 Scramble is being made, but that's by the Musou team. That's not part of Sega Atlus. And we know that we know about a couple remakes coming up, and we know about Project Re Fantasy and Shin Megami Tensei 5 are upcoming, possibly even later this year. But Tokyo Mirage Sessions is an unusual step outside of Atlus's comfort zone. I wish Atlus would make more games like this. Atlus's rather incredible PS2 output, which probably represented a sweet spot of development costs being a little low and their creativity being in a minor golden age. They came out with a bunch of stuff outside of Shin Megami Tensei, such as reviving the Persona series and making Digital Devil Saga and the Devil Summoner series. Atlus had a really good early mid-2000s. And in the 2010s, they felt a little stale because, again, it's only Etrian Odyssey, Persona, and remakes. I wish they would make more unique RPGs like Tokyo Mirage Sessions, and I'm sure you'd agree with me because I mean you love this game, and of course if they were to make more games like this, it would be a good chance of you loving another Atlus game. I mean, Project Re Fantasy is the only project that feels similar to what TMS was in 2015. Am I talking crazy here, or do you share my feeling that Atlus should maybe step out of the Persona box a little bit? Because I know you and I both enjoy Persona.
Yeah.
So like we aren't trying to say stop making Persona games, but what do you think of Atlus's possible output in the 2020s?
For me, Atlus is it feels kind of a weird spot for Atlus right now because for whatever reason they usually I feel like Atlus had a game coming out every year, but now all of a sudden it's slowed down to like maybe one every 2 years. Like,
no, that's definitely not true. They've had 3 or 4 releases basically every year since the early 2010s. But again, they're almost all remakes or Persona spin-offs or a new Etrian Odyssey game. They're like maybe not every single one is on their radar, but let's look at Atlus's output in pick a year from 2015 to the present.
Straight 2016.
2016. Okay. In 2016, they released 4 games. The remake of Odin Sphere, the expanded remake Shin Megami Tensei 4 Apocalypse, Etrian Odyssey 5, and that was the Japanese release date of Persona 5. So again, a bunch of remakes and a new Persona game, and a new Etrian Odyssey game. That's basically every year, between 3 and 5 releases, but mostly within those boxes. And it's not at the level of output that they had during the PlayStation 2 and DS heyday, where they were releasing games like crazy in the late 2000s. So their output has gone down a little bit, but the output is also feels more stale to me because of the abundance of remakes. I'm not trying to disagree with you or hammer your opinion, but I want to see some more creativity of Atlus in the 2010s. Is the point I'm very, very rambling about making.
They just want to see everything more original, right? So,
like, I mean, instead of having only Persona and Etrian and remakes, maybe throw in a Tokyo Mirage Sessions every couple years instead of once a decade.
Yeah, like I think a lot of people would appreciate like Atlus going a little bit outside the comfort zone. It's just a question that I almost feel like will they? So it feels like Atlus is a little bit stuck right now.
Again, Project Re Fantasy is exactly that step outside that pattern that I appreciate, and I hope that game's great. But we don't even know what system it's on yet. I'm just using this as a bit of a platform to be wistful about old Atlus. You know, back when their logo was slightly different. When Atlus was absorbed by Sega, that wasn't a failing on Atlus's part. Their parent company basically tanked, and Atlus was a desirable asset that evidently multiple companies were bidding on a little bit, with Sega ended up winning. So there's no danger of Atlus going out of business. They seem to be a successful game maker with a lot of fans, especially with an RPG fans audience. We Persona and Shin Megami Tensei stuff always does really well when we make content about it. But yeah, I wish the best for Atlas, and making more games like Tokyo Mirage Sessions would make me very happy, even though I would prefer it had slightly less anime pop music in it. But to each their own, right?
Yeah. For me, for example, I'd love another game like this. That's exactly this.
You've heard it here first. Nathan wants more anime pop music in Shin Megami Tensei 5.
Maybe not Shin Megami Tensei 5. I think it might actually have an aneurysm.
Oh man, what, you don't want to see, say, Mara or Koryu like perform a duet?
I'm just thinking of the image of Mara and just trying to imagine a J-pop theme. Oh my god.
All right, okay. If we're talking about Shin Megami Tensei Demon Penises, then it's definitely time to end the episode. Thank you so much, listeners, for accompanying us on a 2-episode journey through Tokyo Mirage Sessions, a game that Nathan loves and has played 4 times, and a game that I really like and have played once. So it comes recommended by both of us. If you are listening and haven't played this game, I'm a little confused, but it comes recommended. But next week, we're having a special episode on playing video games and mental health. It's a topic that is near and dear to several people on RPG Fan, and there was a lot of eager panelists for that episode when we were sort of devising the idea. An episode all about mental health next week. And later in April, we are doing 1 episode on Castlevania, that is still in the planning stages, and 2 episodes on Soul Blazer, the RPG made by Quintet for the Super Nintendo many, many moons ago. I don't think I'll be on that episode because I have other plans in April, and I probably won't be able to leave my house very much during those plans. But that's what's coming in April. But, this is the first episode of April, so I think we can talk about May a little bit. May's official Retro Encounter game is Mother 3, the Japan-only sequel to Earthbound for the Game Boy Advance that came out more than 15 years ago. But it does have a fan-made translation on the internet. If you want to find it, I suggest Google. And we're going to be playing that fan translation of Mother 3 on the podcast in May. So please look forward to some Mother 3 on Retro Encounter.
For some feels.
Oh yeah, that game is... I played that game probably 80% of the way through. I got this isn't really a spoiler. Sort of the MacGuffins you're looking for are items called pins, and I got to I think the 6th pin out of 7, but then my college laptop that I was playing on completely crashed and burned, and I lost all my progress. So I never restarted it. So I have not finished Mother 3. But I played a lot of it a long time ago, and I'm really looking forward to revisiting it. And I'm probably going to start it up pretty soon. So, listeners, look forward to some Mother 3 in May. But, listeners, if you want to reach Retro Encounter directly, the best way to do so is email retro@rpgfan.com. And you can also comment on RPG Fan's message boards, visit a Facebook page, visit our Instagram page, our Twitter page, our Discord server, our Twitch channel, something streaming every day. Usually multiple things streaming every day. And we also have 3 other podcasts, Random Encounter about randomness, Rhythm Encounter about music, although it hasn't had a new episode in a while, and Phoenix Edge about current events. Phoenix Edge is hosted every single week live on YouTube. They usually record on Mondays or Tuesdays. So, and if you want to review us, Retro Encounter, or those other 3 podcasts, you can review us on iTunes or Google Play or however you are listening to us. Please provide feedback. Listeners, if you want to reach Nathan directly, Nathan, how should they do so?
If you want to find me on Twitter, I am at SmashKing27. And on our Discord server, if you want to join that, please do. I'm SmashKing on there.
And listeners, if you want to find me on social media, the best way to do so is Twitter. I am at The Real Monsoon most of the time, at Evoker for Dogs at other times. I'm also Monsoon Mike on RPG Fans Discord, where I mostly get annoyed at people for their bad sports opinions. I think that's basically the conclusion of our duo art, although I don't think if there was a duo art that lasted an hour 15 minutes in-game, fans wouldn't appreciate it.
It would definitely be, I think it'd be fun, but it might just,
I would be hammering the skip button every time. Thank you, good night, and good luck. 旋律は